So here is the problem statement, right? And this is very critical that you need to read these things properly. They are pretty much like your any other project that you will do in real life situations, right? So what they want to do is, what they are saying is they want to reduce storage costs by reducing duplicate content and whenever applicable migrating it to the cloud. They would like a solution that centralizes maintenance while still providing worldwide access for customers who browse media files and marketing literature. Additionally, they would like to address the storage of company data files. Right? So then they have uh, given you multiple things, clarification points. Okay, what are media files? Which are photos and videos, right? And format JPEG and MP4 doesn't really matter, but they have given you this information, right? The media files are photos and videos. Literature, generally it's PDF. And this information, lot of times when you deal with in organizations, deal with companies, you'll get information from where you need to get the required stuff. और आपके लिए यहाँ पे जो important चीज़ है that it is PDF. यहाँ पे it's videos and photos. Literature is PDF. और photos and videos are JPEG and MP4. फिर internal documents and some sensitive and generally office formats like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, those kind of things, right? Now let's look at the problem statement. Want to reduce storage cost, right? So if we analyze, so let's try to analyze this thing, right? What are they trying to say? When they tell you it's an important thing to develop, when somebody gives you a requirement, you need to map it to what the technical thing will be, right? It's a very important part of your job, right? As a technical person, to analyze the requirements and try to see exactly what they're trying to do. Okay. Now, when they say reduce by duplicating content, what you need to see is, it seems, how data can be duplicated over here. It seems that maybe people are copying files into their directories and it's sitting everywhere. Somebody might be creating directories. So, I mean, there are different versions of the same file going around. So what we want to have is a centralized place where everything is available, right? It seems. And they're saying, and whenever applicable, migrate to our cloud, right? उन्होंने ये भी कहा है, they want a solution that centralizes maintenance, right? That gives us lot of information. For example, when we say uh, centralized, for example, solution with worldwide access. That means, I think, for example, we can say cloud storage, because it takes care of it's in one place and it is giving access to everyone, right? Because it's a unique endpoint. We know it's a unique URL. So if they publish it to everywhere, people can access it, given if they have the right credentials, right authorization, they can do it. And address the storage of company data files. What does that mean? Okay, maybe they're out of storage, maybe they are less storage, how they can increase it, how they can manage it, and all those kind of things. So something to do with that one, right? So let's take a look what else is there, right? So first of all, हमने कहा जी, okay, what do we do? So just where we will map these things, right? First of all, हम ये करेंगे कि blob storage we will use, right? हमारे पास minimal details हैं, we don't have too much stuff, but just to concentrate on these points, right? Generally in real life situation you will have more information, but idea is to see what is there, right? So blob storage we are saying we are recommending because it's cheap, right? And if they need, we can make it a ZRS and GRS and whatever, right, if needed. And also, it says immutable. You can lock it also. You can not have them not modified also. And basically, for any kind of legal requirements, and also it says API support, right? Any internal application आप build करे, you can use it, right? Because we discussed this कि अगर कोई websites है and it has files upload download, or it is displaying media which is videos and audios and all that, then you need हमने पढ़ा था कि blob storage is a way for streaming audio and video files, right? So it works out very nicely if you can put it at the back end of the website, for example. That is one thing. उसके बाद मार्केटिंग लिटरेचर है और इनकी अपनी फाइल्स हैं. Generally Azure files is what we can do, right? Because it is shareable over SMB. Everybody can work on the files, and not only that, it can get just a moment. It can get basically it can get shared, right? And it can get backed up as well. So, guys, give me just 1 second, right? So, I mean, understand we have to understand all these features. So you need to be very well versed in the features and kya cheezein, what we have rehearsed over the course of this thing, right? Many times. So SMB for sharing, blobs, right, for large storage, for streaming audio, video, those kind of things, right? और उसके बाद interesting part was, for example, that we can use um, if people are using internally, right? So worldwide access to हो गई, but we want to do internal usage as well. So we can use Azure file sync, right? They'll allow you to synchronize local changes to Azure and vice versa as well. So worldwide access, they can use that thing from anywhere. But local guys, if they try to access the file, it'll be cached locally, right? So that can be a very nice solution. उसके बाद, I mean, even though the requirements are not there, and but be very clear on these things, right? So we can say ZRS, right, or GRS. So I'll try to give you specific problem statement, so you can pick the right one, right? So if I can say I need redundancy, but I need the cheapest possible solution, you need to make sure to put ZRS, not GRS, right? Because ZRS gives you redundancy, but in a much cheaper way than GRS, right? बिकॉज GRS के अंदर आपकी 3 लोकल कॉपीज बनती हैं, 3 वहाँ पे कॉपीज बनती हैं, whereas GRS gives you, I mean, those 3 copies but in 3 different data centers, right, within a single region. So that is a minimal extra cost, right? क्योंकि स्टोरेज आप उतनी ही ले रहे हो, ज़्यादा नहीं ले रहे, whereas GRS storage becomes double, right? So those things are very critical to have in mind when we are doing these kind of design situations, right? कि क्या चीज़ किस तरह impact होगी. उसके बाद they have not given us any information, but for example they can say that generally the media that is being accessed is not more than a year old. That will give you an idea that you can use blob lifecycle management rules to move everything over a year to the cold and archive tier, right? Those kind of things, right? So They can give you multiple things and multiple ideas which needs to be mapped to the solution, right? Please be very, very clear on this. So this is what the solution might look like, right? ये मैं आपको information दूंगा. For example, this one talks about storage only, but I'll give you this information के app service and what is behind and all that, right? So storage account है, उसके पीछे blob storage and Azure files हैं, and I mean they have different access tiers, right? This is what it look like: cold, archive, and whatever, right? This is hot, cold, archive, right? This is like the frozen kind of thing. And it's talking about Active Directory, Azure Active Directory or Azure Entra ID, which is basically providing the authentication or authorization overall over the whole solution, right? An application gateway, this could be, for example, so backend के ऊपर you can map this into different zones, right? This is what we're talking about, primary region, but this can be in different zones if you do ZRS. So something happens to this, it will be still available, but from a different data center, right? But understand how we lay this whole thing out, right, from a solution perspective. Here is this one. Now, अब इंटरनेट से भी आप उन्हीं फाइल्स के ऊपर जा रहे हो, right? Because this is in storage, and from the internal office, this is mapped using Azure File Sync, right? So somebody can go to the from the web application for upload download. Somebody can access from the file services directly because it's SMB file share, and from the main office using Azure File Sync, right? So it's very critical that we have very clear idea about these things. So this is the next case study again. We'll discuss this one. जी. It's exactly जो मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ. इसमें आपको scenarios मैं आपको application बता दूंगा. For example, it will have multiple things, right? आपने एप्लीकेशन आपकी ऑन प्रेमिसेस है, आपने उसको क्या कहते हैं, आपने उसको माइग्रेट करना है. हाउ यू विल यू माइग्रेट? मैं उसे कह दूंगा कि फॉर एग्जांपल राइट नाउ इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू अपग्रेड, यू वांट टू ब्रेक इट डाउन, यू नीड टू हैंडल दैट. फॉर एग्जांपल हाउ यू विल यू ब्रेक डाउन द एप्लीकेशन, क्या पॉसिबिलिटीज हैं? It could be microservices, it could be Kubernetes, it could be whatever, it could be Azure functions, right? So I can give you all of that, right? Anything and everything what we have covered in the from the design perspective, but I will try to cover pretty much everything. तो अगर मैं वेब एप्लीकेशन है आपकी कोई, I can give it to you, I can give it to you and say हमारी on premise application है, right? They want to migrate, it's a one big application, they have lot of problems upgrading, right? And here's a storage issue, and you know, it was old development, everything has been put in the this one, and for example application directory, and we have discussed those issues as well. What you will need to do to migrate the application. आपकी application है, on the right now it is one big web application. If you need to do any updates, you have to bring down and have a downtime of the whole application. You want to reduce this and minimize this one. How would you do that? So you need to present some ideas, right? Whether you want to move something to Azure function, you want to move it to, for example, Kubernetes as containers, and so on and so forth, right? So सारी जो हमने motivations पढ़ी हैं हर चीज़ की, we need to be able to very very clearly articulate those things, right? इसमें it's not too much writing. Main thing is you need to pick, for example, you need to say, जिस तरह यहाँ पे है, you need to show blob tier storage, for example, and you need to show the tiers if this is what the solution mentions, right? And you will mention that आपने क्यों pick किया hot storage, आपने क्यों cold और archive pick किया, to manage which requirement, right? Why you are picking Azure files, to manage which requirement. So you will get these kind of things as requirements, right? You will get the requirements, right? An explanation. You need to map into a solution. जिस तरह मैंने पिछला वाला भी बताया था, these things. मैं आपको बताऊंगा वेब सर्वर है उसकी डिफरेंट चीजें. आई विल मिक्स all of these things, right, what we are discussing. So again, nothing special. If you go one by one, if you go methodically, you can solve everything. But the thing is, you need to pick each and every piece, and you need to be able to design it appropriately, right? मैं अगर ये कह रहा हूँ, it's very infrequent access whenever something happens, right? And I can give you some more hints, right? Just to make it a little bit easier to say servers are very, minimally used, even during peak times because nature of this. You should be able to say हमने Azure function के ऊपर जाना है, right? Or whatever, as we discussed, right? Same thing on web servers. हमने जो इसका पढ़ा था क्लास के अंदर. I can tell you, right? So you can pick VM scale set. I can force you and give you certain requirement that make you go to a PaaS service. इसके अंदर क्लास के अंदर मैंने बताया था कि what if you want to slowly put the load in this solution, right? Then you have to put traffic manager, right? To test the application, make sure put the load slowly over this, right? So all of these things are, very, fair case, right? For these things, nothing special. We have covered. We are covering everything. We have covered everything, and we are covering everything, right? Now you need to. I'll give you a problem statement, very much similar to this. ये आप ले जाना अपने साथ प्रिंट करके ले जाना कंप्यूटर पे रख लेना these things. They might help you a little bit also, right? But you need to understand motivation of each and everything that we have covered. Please be very, very clear, right? It's all about understanding. Hmm? Yeah. It's all about putting everything together, understanding the motivation, right? ये बार बार जो मैंने क्विजेज में एग्जाम्स में आपको सवाल दिया है, क्या डिफरेंस है इन दोनों का? Why would you pick this? Under what circumstances, right? The idea is to be able to pick something when in a certain scenario. अब मैं कहूँ आपको you have to put lot of files, but no sharing required, right? Audio video files हैं. We know हमारा without sharing we go to blob storage, right? Generally speaking. And for file sharing, ये मैंने आपके एग्जाम का भी क्वेश्चन था. For containers, we said we'll use Azure files. हमने क्लास में भी पढ़ा था ये, right? Again, all those things will come into practice when you start designing the system, right? That's the idea. So make sure you go over all of these things, right? Yeah, identity solution, and we'll cover it next time, maybe inshallah. So, for example, they are saying it is recommended. I will make it simpler for you from the perspective where I will say this is the requirement, right? I will give you the specific requirement. यहाँ पे from a solution perspective, they are saying it's ZRS. It's a little bit extra money, but it take cares of a data center failure. Though they have not mentioned very specifically about that, right? Let me see. Right. So they have not mentioned this thing that they want any kind of redundancy across data centers, but the solution says it's recommended. But again, as you can see, वो कह रहे हैं अगर front end can use the secondary region, you can make the read access during end as well, right? I might add those kind of things in the problem statement, right? That from a secondary web application, you want to be able to read this thing, right? और अगर मैं कहूँ read and write from both areas, right? From web application, for example, then of course that becomes a case for Cosmos DB, right? It gives you multi-region writes over the Cosmos DB, right? So again, be very clear. Anything can be part of the solution, depending on the problem statement, right? Keep those things in mind. तो यहाँ पे उन्होंने लिखा हुआ है discuss there is not enough information to decide between cold and archive, right? So, I mean, you need to get, but I will give you all the required information in the problem statement so you can have very specific things. Again, nothing hard. It's all this stuff, right? But you need to be able to put it together. Just like we put this thing together, right? This one. हमने पहले IS में किया, इसके अंदर हमने PAS में किया, right? Anyway, we'll cover this thing in the next class. Let me stop the recording for this.